there's a solar eclipse happening right now, but it's only a partial in my area. Like, I think it's full in the US, but in the UK it's not too significant. Like, I think I've read in some places that it's like 90%, but I've also read only 30 or 40% coverage. So I'm like, well, is that even noticeable if you're not looking? And I don't have the appropriate safety glass thingies to wear for looking. So I could construct, you know, like the at-home methods. I think it's like a box with a pinhole in it, or you can do a piece of paper with a 3 centimeter hole in it, and you hold that above another piece of paper that's lying on the ground, and like the sun shines through the hole and you can like see the eclipse on the bit of paper on the ground. But I don't know that I'm going to be able to see it anyway because it's a little bit overcast. And the other issue is I can't get into the backyard right now because, like an idiot, I closed the deadbolt between the conservatory and the backyard, and I can't get it open again, and I knew this in advance. I know that I struggle with this one deadbolt. I just couldn't get it done. And like, when I've previously tried with great determination to get out that door after having locked it, the key ended up warping slightly in the lock because of how hard you have to try and turn it. And like, of course, the immediate question is like, are you sure you were turning it the right way? Yes, I'm very sure. It's just a sticky lock, and I guess that the key is flimsy metal. But at any rate, I have locked myself out of the back garden, and I can't get in until my landlord comes home and casually opens it with her like magic key. So I can't get into the back garden. So it seems like if I want to do this whole viewing the eclipse thing, I have to do it on public property. I don't know that I want to do that. And if I had the glasses, maybe it would be fine, because it would just be like, oh yes, it's time, put glasses on, oh yes, I have observed the thing, take glasses off. But if it's like I have to carry a box with a hole in it through the park, then enthusiasm waning slightly for that option. But anyway, we're now sunscreened. Yes, I've done the chest, done back of neck. I think I can go outside now. So, what I'm going to do, what am I going to do? I wanted to go for a decent walk, by which I mean like at least 2 hours. So what I could do is bring a backpack with me and throw like materials in it that if the clouds clear I can whip them out and view this eclipse. However, it's 5 to 11, hang on. According to my notes, okay, so we're about 8 minutes from Maxim. And it looks like a completely normal day outside, so I suspect this isn't going to be very impressive. And I also suspect the clouds are not going to clear in the next 8 minutes and give like an amazing view of the possibly not very impressive partial eclipse, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to load up our pockets with useful things and go for a walk. I'm really struggling to film this in a coherent manner. The fact that I'm standing probably isn't helping because I'm like, oh, I'll just pace and move back and forth between feet. Anyway, so I did the walking thing. It turned out that the path that I chose wasn't as long as I had estimated it would be. It's not like a, you know, a set path that has signage or anything. I was just kind of like, okay, so if I take this country path and then that walkway and then I deviate and go through that paddock and rah, I can make a big loop around this patch of forest. And I did that, but wasn't as far as I had estimated it would be. So future attempts to do like substantial walks, I'm going to have to go further afield, which is fine, but I have to plan that. And we're wanting to do this because some of you will remember prior to getting sick at the end of 2020, I was doing between 9 and 12 kilometre hikes up the local mountain several times a week. So I had built up a reasonable amount of stamina. But then from the end of 2020 through to the end of 2023, I was in almost constant pain. So that amount of training went from like regular maintenance training to sort of opportunistic, well, I'm not in agony today, I guess I'll give it a go level of training, which isn't training at all really. So I'm trying to get back what I lost during that period, and unfortunately I live somewhere quite flat, so just yes to the top of that mountain and back isn't an option, and I have to try and find more. I'm having to try and find more distance paths to try and get the same amount of stamina without the big incline, and I won't be joining the local gym, at least not anytime soon. So anyway, that's been done. Clouds remained over the sun, so there was no opportunity to view eclipse at all. That's fine, because I did not bring anything with me to safely observe said event. And what else? I had a list of things I wanted to talk to you about, and now I don't know what was on that list. It's upstairs. Yes, okay, so earlier I want to say January, I made a goals video, and I'm pretty sure, without actually double checking, that in that video I talked about how for my PhD I had a check-in at the 4-month mark, and that at this check-in you get like a grade or a classification-y thing, and satisfactory is the highest grade possible, which is very unsatisfying, but apparently it's because excellence is the only satisfactory level of performance, and my goal was to reach satisfactory. I got my feedback the other day. I am satisfactory, so that has been a great success. And now I don't have another check-in until the first week of June, but I actually have to submit stuff for that in advance. So I think mid-May, I think I have to submit something for that. So it feels far away and also imminent at the same time. So we'll be getting on with that in terms of uni stuff, but in the meantime, writing things is what we're going to do, but we're also going to put a pizza in the oven. Well, dinner is in the oven. Further updates, I suppose. Seeing I started talking about, my goals and progress and stuff, like, let's just carry on. It'd be really helpful if I knew what they had been, though. I need to, when I set goals, write them down somewhere. That would have been really helpful. So I think I had a really unexciting goal regarding financy stuff, specifically making sure I had enough money for an emergency flight home. I haven't got that yet. I have enough for the cheapest of the cheap, worst flight imaginable with a dodgy airline kind of flight and one way only. So I don't consider that to be goal met just yet. But making progress. I have kind of, but also not at all. Oh god, now the battery's dying. It's now the next day. I couldn't be bothered going upstairs and getting a new battery and taking my camera off the tripod and unscrewing the bit that connects it to the tripod so that I could switch out the battery and then rescrewing it. I was like, nope, dinner is ready, I'm done for today. So, back again to finish what I was saying. I believe what I was saying was that I was making some progress on my goals. Pretty sure I told you that I got the grade I wanted for my 4-month review. I've now actually checked my goals for this year, and I have ticked off another one of them, which was to start writing my Portal fantasy, but you kind of already knew that. I think I mentioned that a few weeks ago. And then I was going to be establishing a healthy sleep pattern. Oh, the laughter that follows that. And moving straight on to querying agents. So this one has been kind of, I'm working towards it indirectly. What I'm trying to do is improve what I have when I actually pitch. So that's why I'm currently working on reading through my potential comparative titles, just so I have that as something I can mention. I'm about halfway through Wild, so obviously the reading is going very, very slowly because that's the first of the 3 books. But you know, I've read half of it. And so far, yeah, I would say it's a pretty strong comparative title for my Camino story. I mean, I guess it was always going to be because both of them are about a woman walking a long distance by herself and thinking about stuff. But all of the, oh, the lighting's getting bad. All of the other things around it are quite different. Not surprisingly, because Wild is a memoir, it kind of jumps around and is a little bit choppy and is a bit more like reflective, I guess. And it has, like, you know, we're 100 pages in and we're still getting, well, not still getting, but like, you know, we're getting scenes which are discussing stuff that happened before, but it's just kind of, you know, giving context to what's happening now, as memoirs do. Why am I explaining this? That's unnecessary. Obviously mine's fiction, even though it is inspired by my own experiences, so it doesn't do that. I haven't used flashbacks or anything, so it's quite different structurally. But yeah, I would say there's like, I can see the similarities. I don't know if the vibes are the same. I feel that mine is, because it's fiction and can be, it's a little bit frillier in terms of the amount of description and that kind of thing, but it's also because my character is an artist, so it kind of, to me it makes sense that when it's her perspective it should be kind of have a, like an artistic or descriptive feel to how she sees things. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I don't know. Maybe it's just my writing style and I'm framing it as it's the character's perspective. Like, maybe if I wrote a really analytical scientist, you know, and not a creative soul, then would I still write the description the way that I do? Because, yeah, like, is it actually me or is it the character? I don't know if that's made any sense. We're going to move on because I can't recover that thought process at all. Anyway, working on the reading comparative titles thing. The other thing I've done is gone through and made a couple of little tiny changes in the manuscript in regards to word usage. So oddly enough, when my character's walking that far, she gets blisters and there are injuries and things. So words for what's the word I need? Words for plasters was important. So at home, regardless of the company that makes it, a plaster is a plaster. But I wasn't sure if that was a Kiwiism and if other countries also use the word plaster. And so years ago I was in the chat of a writing sprint online, and I posed the question because I realized that obviously it was an international audience, and I figured this would give me a couple of different words maybe if it wasn't common usage. So unfortunately I just asked the question, if I say plaster, do you know what I'm talking about? I didn't explain my thought process behind the question, so everyone went to great lengths to tell me all about how you could just use the word band-aid. And what I think was happening was that people were misunderstanding and thinking that I was scared of using the word Band-Aid because it's a brand name and looking for a generic alternative word. But that's not what I was doing. I was trying to use the word, or my preference for the word plaster is because that's the common usage in New Zealand for any kind of, you know, adhesive bandage. It's a plaster, regardless of who makes it. We don't say Band-Aid. Like, we know what it is, but it's not the go-to term if you're asking for one. So for me, to have my character say Band-Aid would to be like breaking her character a little bit. So when people were saying, oh, everyone uses Band-Aid, just use Band-Aid, that was actually not helpful, because I was like, well, maybe they do in your country, wherever you're from, but they don't in my character's country. So I very reluctantly, and hated it the whole time, used the phrase bandage throughout my book, because I could not have my character consistently use the word Band-Aid, because Kiwis don't. And it was unclear to me from that conversation if plaster was a word that people outside of New Zealand would commonly use. But I thought, well, everyone knows what a bandage is. So there was that. And then, unfortunately, I do think pretty much everyone uses Compeed to mean like the squishy blistered bandages that Compeed makes. So I had used a combination of bandage and Compeed. And I've basically decided I need to switch around what I'm doing there, because I have since found out that yes, other countries use the word plaster and I can get away with using it without confusing my reader. So I've switched all the bandages to plasters. But then my issue with using the word Compeed is Compeed bandages aren't necessarily shown in the best light. So I've just switched that out for like gel plasters, so like the blistered gel plasters that have to be Compeed. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know if I've made any sense, but that's what I've done. And now I'm down to umming and ahhing over whether or not I add in a couple of lines of dialogue about the size of my character's pack. This is something that is brought up again and again and again through the book, is the fact that my character's pack is bigger than people think it should be. And the reason why I think isn't really addressed. I suspect that if you read through it you might think that it's addressed, but it's actually not. So the character is carrying art supplies and someone comments about her bag being really big and she thinks about the art supplies situation. And I think that would suggest to people that she's just carrying a large amount of art supplies and that makes her bag big. But that's not why. And it's not plot relevant, it's not important, it's just, that's not why her bag is bigger. And I thought maybe, even though it's not important, I could put in a couple of lines explaining why her bag is so much bigger than everybody else's. So yeah, I haven't done that yet. I'm still thinking about it because it is one of those things of like, just because the author knows something doesn't mean that the reader needs to ever hear about it. But I don't like the idea of my character being seen as someone who like overpacked because she was being irresponsible. And I think if people think that her bag is too big because of the art supplies, then that's how that would be interpreted. But like, maybe it doesn't matter if she's seen as irresponsible. Like, I don't think that changes anything in the story. Like, yeah, like being irresponsible wouldn't change any of her decisions. I think potentially some people might think some of her decisions are irresponsible anyway, but that's just kind of like one potential interpretation depending on the reader, not necessarily what I've said, I think. But anyway, so that's where I'm up to with my goals. I'm quite hungry now. So I'm gonna get lunch. And then I would like to say I'm going to do some writing, but I don't know that I shall. Yeah, we'll see, I guess. Today has been my working from home day for the week, and it's been a little bit hard. I've also had some not great news from home, so I didn't get a lot of sleep last night because it's like, you know, sending off texts and then also just staying awake, waiting to see if I could respond from texts. And so yeah, I went into today extremely tired. So given that this is the last day that I'll definitely have time by myself in the house where I'm not going to be too awkward to film, this might be it for this week. So quick wrap up on whatever progress I've made, I guess. I have random bit of dust flying down. I have the last change I want to make on my Camino story to do, which is where the main character explains why her pack is so big. And I initially thought I knew where I was going to put it, and then I've started to doubt myself, and now I've just put a pause on that while I try and decide. My options are, at the beginning of the book, there is a person who questions the size of her pack. And towards the end of the book, there's a person who questions the size of her pack. And there is a piece of dialogue I've got in mind which she can give in response, which would explain it. And it makes sense if the character has gone through stuff and has had the same kind of questions over the course of her journey and rah, it would make sense if she was able to calmly articulate information towards the end of the book that she might not have been able to articulate at the beginning of the book. And the character that she's talking to at the end is also a person who is questioning her but also calmly listening to the answers. Whereas at the beginning of the book, maybe my character's being pushed around a little bit by a person who's like interrupting and not listening and a bit bossy. That person might not give the character a time to calmly explain. So it makes sense in terms of the two scenarios that the main character would explain it in the latter. But that means that you're getting this piece of information way towards the end of the book. And it's like, well, it's not like it's, you know, a reveal or anything that really matters. To me, it matters just as like, just for clarification. But it's not important to plot or character development or anything. It's really just a world building detail more than anything else. And I feel like that sort of thing, it goes at the start, because if it's later, then I don't know, I feel like information revealed later in the book needs to be revealed later for a reason. I'm probably overthinking it. If you have an opinion, let me know down in the comments. At some point I'll revise the two chapters and I'll decide where I can fit it in better. I am concerned that the earlier opportunity to put it in, it might be like really tightly shoehorned in there, because she's talking to a character who never stops talking. So how she would manage to jam the explanation in, I'm not quite sure. But like, you know, having it explained right away would make sense, right? Anyway, that's that. For now we're just going to let that simmer for a little while. I have made a tiny little, maybe less than that, bit of progress on my Portal fantasy. I'm finding it really hard to write. And not in that like I don't know what's happening or anything. I think it's that I've been working on polishing my Camino story for several years. Like that thing's been written for a long time. I've just been like making little tiny changes and polish and that kind of thing for a while. And I think also because it's drawn from original experience, maybe it was easier to write it and have it be quite fluid Perhaps, I'm not entirely sure. It's been a while since I wrote it from the blank page. But now I'm working with blank page and just what's in my head, I'm like, yeah, where do I put stuff in? When do I mention things? I don't know, oh god, and it's just, yeah, I feel like it's being a little bit like, the character does this, and then this, and then this, and then this, not like nicely beautiful, flowy prose kind of thing. And I'm sure it's just because this is the very, very first draft, but it feels so clumsy and icky that I'm like, oh no, and it's making it hard to write. But maybe what I need to do is actually just like pick a weekend day and just do like, right, big mind dump, just put it all down there without making a 10k day out of it, because I don't want to put like the pressure of a 10k, because whilst I can write 10,000 words in a day, absolutely, I should rephrase, I have been able to write 10,000 words in a day many times in the past. I don't know that I've got the like spare brain cells for that right now, to be honest, but also I know that the stuff I've written on 10k days is really shitty. And I'm like, well, maybe that's fine, because it would just like, you know, get the turd on the paper and then we'll worry about polishing it. Maybe that would help, but I feel like I just want to take the pressure of a 10k off and instead just be like, you know, maybe focus on time written rather than amount written or something like that, just to try and push through this initial like, oh, it's hard kind of phase. But I don't know, we'll see. So yeah, I think that's probably it from me for now. I'm gonna see, I guess, over the next 2 weeks if I can yeah, make another go at this attempt of doing like little bits of filming here and there kind of thing. I don't know. I guess whether I try another vlog will really depend on how this one turns out, because I might go and edit all this raw footage and then be like, oh no, I guess we're going to do a tag video this week, shit. But hopefully this has been a vlog that you will see and not just a whole bunch of raw footage that I'm going to delete off my hard drive in about half an hour's time. So assuming that is in fact the case, I hope you enjoyed. If so, like, comment, subscribe and that kind of thing, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Before you go, so I bought this shirt at a vintage clothing thing. It was advertised online, you had to buy tickets because they wanted to like control the number of people going in at a time. It was this whole big thing that my friend was excited to go to, so we bought tickets and I went and I walked in and I was like, oh, I'm really old, because all the vintage clothes were like 90s, and I'm like, I was a teenager in the 90s. To me, vintage is 70s and older. And I was just walking around being like, I don't want to dress like my teenage self. I do not consider these to be wearable clothes. Like, this is like not a thing I am prepared to be interested in wearing. There were some jackets which I would have killed for when I was a teenager, like the sheepskin ones where like the wool is on the inside and then you can see like the inside, like the wool part on the seams where it's come through. Like, I wanted one of those so bad, but now I'm like, okay, first of all, these are quite dirty. I'm too old to wear something quite that filthy, or purchase something quite that filthy. And yeah, I was just like, oh god. And my friend was bummed out that I wasn't having a good time and finding stuff to wear, and I was like, I'm not dressing like my teenage self. It's just not gonna happen. So I actually bought this in part just so I had like participated. But yeah, I kind of like it, and then it's got like Hawaiian shirt vibes, but then the print's kind of Japanese feeling. And I kind of got it and I was like, I'm never actually going to wear it outside of the house. But then I just threw it on before just so I had like my arms covered a little bit, and I was like, oh actually, maybe like open Hawaiian shirt is in fact my vibe now. I quite like it. So we'll see. If we suddenly see me wearing a lot of shirts like this, we know what happened. Anyway, I'll see you next time.